1 week season.
1 week season, fam. La Familia. Welcome back. It is Monday, August 26th. We are 10 days away from the kickoff of the NFL season. Preseason games are done. The final cuts will be made soon. The last games happened. We've got some guys coming back from training camp. We got a lot going on. We will be doing a live draft on Drafters this morning. Looks like that is getting ready to fire up. And I'm going to bring in my esteemed co-host, Billy Gabelman, Stat ATL. Billy, welcome this morning. How you doing?
Morning, Mike. Happy Monday. What are we? 10 days away or so from the season, give or take. Maybe 11 or 12.
Exactly 10. Yeah, 10 exactly from that first Thursday game. It's
very exciting, my friend. How you doing this morning? You have a good weekend?
Good, yeah. A lot of drafting, doing the Drafters promo. Did 6 drafts to get one free. I was able to get 12 in. Did a bunch of Superflex drafts for their Superflex contest before that filled up. I think all in all, I started like 10 slow drafts in the Superflex, but I think all in all, I did like 25 fast drafts. So, and that was in between. We were on a boat on Saturday. We were at the pool on Sunday, enjoying the last little bit of summer. As I texted you, trying to get some equity within the household, some positive vibe equity before the NFL season starts. And on Sundays, I'm kind of giving the dirty look.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you earned some equity there. You've got 10 more days where we're all going to be super busy. So that's just how it goes.
Yep. We are. Looks like we need one more. So anyone watching, if you want to hop in, it's at 11 to 12. Need one more to fill this contest or fill this draft, I should say, so that we can get rolling. But the drafter is actually. Oh, there it goes. We're all full. The drafters, for those of you who don't know, I'll pull it up. If any of you are new to best ball, just coming back, we have Drafters is the site that we primarily draft on this show. The contest format is different than Underdog and DraftKings in that it is not. It doesn't have the playoff style format where it goes into pods at the end. And you're only with your 12 teams that you draft with for the first 14 weeks. It is cumulative scoring over 17 weeks. A lot of different strategy angles there that we talk about at 1 week season on our Best Ball Plus subscription. Price is down to $99. It is, like I said, $2.5 million prize pool, $500,000 to first, $200,000 to second. I believe the top 20 make 5 figures, $10,000 or more. And it looks like there's going to be some overlay. If you are new to it, you can check it out. Use code OWS on your first deposit. You will get a 100% deposit match. So for $100, you could get $200 worth of credit to play with, and load up on those drafts. There's going to be some overlay, so it's a very plus EV situation, which is what we chase in best ball DFS all across the board. Looks like I am going to be sitting at the number 7 slot here. So we're getting to the tipping point in top of the draft. Jamar Chase, I think, is the big news from the first round guys. Practice Sunday for the first time all preseason. CeeDee Lamb has still not practiced. So I think those are the two big situations from the first round that warrant some attention and potential discussion. I know I saw you in Discord talking about Chase. Are you, were you down on him before, or are you, what are your thoughts on Chase?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I've been a little down on him in the past few weeks just because he hadn't practiced. Kind of similar to Lamb. 1 week season subscribers have probably seen the tracking spreadsheet that Mike and I use for our teams. Kind of. So I was looking at it over maybe last week, and you're on the clock here. I know 100% who you're going to take. And I was just looking at of those kind of top 5, 6 receivers, the 6 off the board right now. Like Jamar Chase was the guy I had the least amount of exposure to. It was still about field average. I think it was like around 7 or 8%. Like my highest is probably the same as yours, to be honest, Mike. I would bet that we both probably have the most of AJ Brown, just because he's the guy I'm generally targeting at 7, 8, 9.
Among the first round guys, you mean?
Yeah, around the
Yeah.
first round guys.
Yeah.
But Jamar Chase was my lowest, so I was excited to see him back practicing in the drafts that I was doing, on Sunday, and I did one this morning. I got a pick where I could take Chase, and I took him in both of them. So definitely not shying away from it at this point. I am starting to get a little concerned about CeeDee Lamb. Fact that he hasn't practiced yet all season. It makes me a little weary to grab him at number 1 overall, number 2 overall. Like, I'd rather just be a little safer at this point. Plus, I have plenty of Lamb exposure already. But what about yourself? How do you feel about those top 6? Anybody you're shying away from?
Yeah, I think so. I have more concern with Lamb than with Chase. Obviously, Chase is back. Thing with Chase is he has 2 years left on his deal, so it's a lot harder for him to like see it through, like to actually miss time.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take Debo there, but just because Lamb at least is only a year away, like Chase doesn't have the same amount of leverage. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a situation where both owners, Mike Brown and Jerry Jones, are not particularly. They're not guys that like getting pushed around or feeling like somebody's forcing them into a corner. So
Mm-hmm.
I think both situations are a little volatile. Lamb, I have some concern with just being like a top overall pick. Like that's, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Like even if he comes back at this point, like I'm just worried. Like, is there chemistry issues? Is there, an injury sort of situation that we have to worry about? Yeah. I mean, I have some concern there for Lamb, being honest. But at the same time, when he drops to 4 or 5, I click it pretty quickly.
Yeah, same. So that's kind of the news that I noticed, kind of out of the first round. Kind of looking to see anybody off the board here. Still no news on Brandon Ayuk, and he's a guy that I've seen really start to slide in drafts. It happened actually again for me this morning, where I got him at the 3-4 turn. Just for sheer aesthetics, I waited and took him at 37, so I could say that I took him in the 4th round. But he's the guy I continue to see slide in drafts, and that feels like a mistake. I understand the uncertainty, but again, like, this is not the guy going 1st or 2nd overall. This is, this is a 2-3 round, 2-3 turn type guy that is following a full round.
Yeah, you got to give me 1 second here.
Okay. So, a couple of other, for I think most of the folks listening know I do a Monday article where we just kind of talk risers and fallers, kind of the big news from this past week. Kind of the first real trade we've seen off the board was around Johan Dotson. Commanders traded him to the Eagles for some draft picks. Some interesting situations of what that might entail. Obviously, it's probably a good situation for Dotson. His ADP is going to is going to fall just because he's now going to go from wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 3, likely on a better offense. I think the really intriguing thing, kind of more, is who does that open up some spots for on Washington. And to me, I think if they don't make a trade, I love being able to grab De'Ami Brown in the last round or two. I think he'll likely be the wide receiver 2 on that team for now. But for
Hmm.
me, my favorite riser who has not seen a rise in ADP from this trade, but somebody that I do feel like I'm targeting a little bit more now, is Austin Eckler, a guy I've been kind of high on to begin with, but just more targets that need to go somewhere. And I love his value kind of in that 10th, 11th round. He
Hmm.
typically goes around pick 120, I think.
Yeah.
So he's a guy that when he's there, when I'm kind of in that first third, first fourth of the draft board, he's a guy I love to kind of grab there.
Sorry, I got to bounce one more time.
No, you're fine. I don't mind talking to myself. I do it on several other pods for hours at a time. Um, so what else? Kind of some interesting news off the top. Let's kind of see anybody else kind of going off the board here. I have kind of seen Terry McLaurin's ADP start to rise. He went 39th overall here. Some of that I do think kind of stems out of that Johan Dotson news. Um, I've seen him go in third rounds in the last few days. Jeff definitely rising from where you were frequently getting him at the 4-5 turn. He's definitely going closer to the 3-4 turn in the past 4 to 5 days. So just kind of uh, something to be kind of noteworthy of. I guess kind of who's kind of next at the top here of the ADP. So Xavier Worthy, probably next guy to go, or within the next pick or two would be my guess. I know he'll be gone by 55 because if he makes it to Mike's going to snag him. But the Chiefs went ahead and signed or re-signed Juju Smith-Schuster this morning. Um, I don't know if that really is a threat of a potential kind of looming Racy Rice suspension. To me, just kind of a guy who knows the system, was part of their team in 2022 when they won the Super Bowl. I mean, obviously they won it last year too. To me, he's just kind of a depth piece who knows their system, who has some familiarity with Patrick Mahomes. I think he's
Yeah.
just kind of more a depth piece, probably in case of injury.
Yeah,
Um,
it might have something to do with, I mean, like Hollywood Brown, who knows where he's at. Like, I think that might be more like, I don't know. It'll be interesting, like, to see if how that this plays out. Like, if there actually is, if they just signed him to sign him, or if there's something going on there.
mhm.
Um, let's see. I'm gonna take Kenneth Walker. I'm getting more excited about Walker as the season progresses. He just the way he, like, it sounds like he's fitting in and the new staff, like, really likes him.
Mhm.
And I know Charbonnet was a second rounder last year, but with him being it's a new regime and Charbonnet's been battling injury. Charbonnet was a guy that I was targeting a lot early in the process, but um, Walker, even as his ADP has come up, I really like him as when I get these 4 wide receiver starts, taking him in this round.
Yeah, um, it's an interesting discussion. Like it's hard for me. I have to fight with my preconceived notions of watching Walker last year and just how ineffective and inefficient he was. Um, but he's getting a ton of praise out of camp. He doesn't look like he's going to have a ton of competition just with Charbonnet's injuries. Um, Certainly to start the season. So I totally buy into this, round 5, ADP. I don't know that there's that much difference between him and like a Derrick Henry or a Josh Jacobs. Like James Cook has some question marks. I know you're high on him. To me, Walker's not much different than either of those two guys. You know what I mean? Like I feel like he fits this current ADP in terms of his potential output. I think is totally fair. I don't think it's a reach to grab him here. I don't feel like you have to run to do it, but yeah, certainly don't mind getting some exposure to him. Certainly in builds like what you've got here with starting 4 wide receivers, which is kind of a start I think you and I both do pretty frequently. But yeah, no, I like it. I'm trying to see any other kind of noteworthy news of guys who have come off the board.
Yeah, Deontay Johnson, he came back, and then he had a little ankle scare. Looks like he's good to go, though. Alvin Kamara, his workload, he's another guy in that range. So there's like 5 guys. So Mixon, Jacobs, Walker, Cook, and Kamara are all like they're all this very similar group of guys, like kind of veterans that like could have like pretty big workloads that I don't know that there's necessarily that much of a difference between them and like the 6 or 7 guys being drafted just before them, especially if the workload works out a certain way. Jacobs, I mentioned. Well, Mixon, his competition, like Damian Pierce, just hasn't looked good at all ever in Slowick's system. Hasn't looked good this preseason. Looks like Cam Akers might take the backup job there. So, I mean, he should be a workhorse as long as he stays on the field. Jacobs, A.J. Dillon has another neck injury. Marshawn Lloyd, the rookie, has been battling a hamstring. Like, he's going to be a workhorse to start the year, I think. And then Kamara, I mean, Jamal Williams isn't like, he's 28, 29, whatever, and he's not like a explosive type guy. I know Taysom Hill's getting some buzz, but like with Kendre Miller basically either going to be cut or maybe put on IR to start the year, he like hasn't practiced in a month. I mean, Kamara's a guy who's been like a top end running back. He was a top 3 running back last year. It's just it's a good range that I really like attacking.
Yeah, I noticed on this draft, and I know we talk about getting different exposures and different combinations and things like that. You just did something in the 6th round. I don't know that I've done very much of at all. With I don't find myself like when I have the opportunity, like a lot of times I'm taking Evan Ingram over Kyle Pitts almost every single time. Maybe that's a leak for me. Like I just look at Evan Ingram, like his last 2 seasons when he moved over to the Jags. It's been the tight end 2 and the tight end 5 the last 2 years. Like he gets so much run in that offense. I think obviously you don't want to put too much stock in a preseason game, but the knock on Evan Ingram has been that he generally isn't targeted as much, doesn't catch a ton of touchdowns every year. Well, he had 2 touchdowns in 1 quarter in the preseason game over the weekend. So maybe if they end up targeting him more in the end zone, he has tight end 1 upside. Like he might be my favorite for the tight end 1 overall if he's getting red zone looks this year.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I've got a lot of both of them. Well, I probably have more Ingram than Pitts, but he just goes after him. So yeah, I don't disagree with you. I love me some Evan Ingram for sure. He's and with Christian Kirk's injury, I don't know if you said that, but those two kind of work the same area of the field, both kind of the like underneath, middle of the field guys, and there's a lot of new faces there, right? So those are the 2 who have been with Trevor Lawrence for a while. So it's like does that? I think the other players help, certainly help. I'm going to take DeAndre Hopkins here, but I don't think like when it comes down to it, his trusted guys, his guys that run routes that are easier targets to complete are Kirk and Ingram, and if Kirk's battling this injury, Ingram could come out of the gates. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's tight end 1 for the first 5-6 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
And I mean,
It looks
the
like we
whole
got a
season is
question.
in play, but I think the first part of the season, it's like I think he's got a pretty good chance to do it.
Yeah. Looks like we got a question over here in chat. How much weight do we put in high lows? Point that teams with low season point totals may not have great fantasy outputs from players. Deshaun, personally, I put some weight, some stock into that. There are often, like, for example, the Patriots are projected to score. I don't have the exact number, but Mike, isn't it like 40 points less than the team right below above them?
Yeah, as of that, I mean, that graphic was a month or so ago, so some of that might have changed. But so the the season point totals thing, a lot of it is, I would say the top few teams, top 4 or 5 teams are um, pretty strong bets to, even if they don't finish that high, they're going to have good years, like unless total catastrophe strikes. And I
Mhm,
think you can kind of say the same thing, maybe not quite to the same extent for the bottom end.
mhm.
But I think the rest of the teams in the middle, I mean, we see it year over year, like the way the NFL with parity, with the way they do their scheduling. Uh, we see teams like the Texans were one of the lowest projected point total teams last season. And look what they did. There's the Packers were expected to take a big step back without Aaron Rodgers. And, they ended up having a bunch of guys who did really well. So I think that, I think that a lot of that is baked into where these guys are drafted. Like the Patriots, I mean, I don't have like any Ramondre Stevenson, and there isn't anyone else being drafted in the first 10 rounds. So, like, I don't mind Jalen Polk. I don't mind Demario Douglas. I think Drake May, I'm on DraftKings, I own like 40% Drake May. So, I'm going to take Zach Moss here. We can talk about him a bit. But yeah, to answer that question, sorry, I pull it up. Yeah, I think it's a relevant question. I think it's a bigger deal on for two things. When players have, the earlier it is in the draft, the more that matters. So like a guy like Devonte Adams on the Raiders, who are bottom 5 projected point totals as a second round pick. Um, I'm just I'm that's like a little worrisome, but also I think it matters more on the uh, like underdog DraftKings, the playoff style contest, just because the weekly ceiling matters a little bit more. I think it all kind of comes out in the wash, and even those low point projected total teams on a PPR site like this, they can still. I mean, how many times do you see like the garbage 20-point game from the slot receiver on a team down 20? So,
Mhm.
sorry, that's a long answer, but you know, that's my answer.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know earlier on one of these Waken Snakes, maybe a month ago, shared a stat that I came across, and I didn't find it. I just came across it on X on Twitter. Was around like Alex Van Pelt, so the offensive
Mhm.
coordinator for the Patriots, and just that he had never had a running back have more than like 45 receptions all year. And so, I think a lot of the value that you're kind of going for with Ramondre Stevenson or Gibson is that, hey, they're going to be trailing, like we expect, them to be losing a lot probably, and we'll get some dump offs and some points there. But Van Pelt has had some running backs with receiving chops, and it's just never happened over the last whatever 6-7 years. So it's
Yeah.
just it's hard for me to pay Ramondre Stevenson's price. Like there's just where he's going.
Well,
I
and
just like the guys around him
did you
better.
see that? Did you see the usage yesterday?
I didn't see the
So
usage in that game yesterday.
he like basically he got 2 or 3 carries on their first series with the first team offense.
Uh-huh.
I think he got a couple targets. Like he's going to be involved. Or sorry, Antonio Gibson. I'm talking about
Yeah.
is going to be involved. Um, and yeah, I mean Ramondre. That's a guy who where he's going in that, like, where is he going? Like the 8th round, most there, Aaron Jones, those types are going around that range. And then you get the Cincy, Tennessee, Washington backs afterwards. Yeah, I'm not like I have basically none of Ramondre Stevenson. That's probably one of my stronger stands of the year. And I mean, it's one of those things where like I might be wrong on that. He might end up okay, but I don't like he can't really dust me is my kind of approach to it. Like I'm not gonna be like, oh, well, all my teams are dead because I didn't take any Ramondre Stevenson. So um, you know, kind of asymmetric upside to that stance, in my opinion. I want to talk quick about the last two backs I took. First, Zach Moss, Cincinnati backfield. So early on, Chase Brown was getting like the running back one reps. Um, and he's played throughout the preseason, but then like Moss is healthy and they've held him out all preseason. So Moss is a guy I've been taking a ton of in this range. I think he's kind of going under the radar, but my take on it is like they're protecting him almost. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. Also, Bart says my kid. This is William, by the way, not named after Stat, but
Could have been.
yeah. Wild Bill, as his uncle calls him. Uh, so yeah, no, he actually QB quotient. First words. I think he's tried to say silo the other day. I'm not sure, but I think it was either silo. Um, I don't know, or he could have been just mumbling. We don't know. But I'm gonna go with it. He was trying to say silo.
Mm-hmm.
So here we go. What do you got?
Yeah, I'll let you make your pick. But no, I echo those sentiments. Moss is a guy that I feel like I've been targeting a lot more in that range.
Mhm.
Similar take to you. I think to me a little bit more. I don't know that it's a super surprising news, but I think the slightly bigger news between your last two running back picks is around Jerome Ford.
Yeah.
Reported this morning that Nick Chubb is likely going to start the season on the pup list, which means he's guaranteed to miss at least 4 games. I know it's something that you and I have been chatting about literally for 3 months now, about Jerome Ford's value. And I loved when we were getting him at
He was going like,
whatever that
yeah,
is, the
like
11, 12
11,
turn.
yeah, around like 132, 133. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was nice.
He's certainly moved up 2 full rounds. I generally find him going at kind of that 9-10 turn, that 108, 109 range is where I generally see him. So he's kind of moved up 2 full rounds. And
Mhm.
I think it's totally warranted. Um, you know, we've talked on some of the training pods. I think there's a guy that you could draft along with Jerome Ford who basically goes undrafted the last couple of weeks. And that's a strategy that I still really like doing.
Talking Foreman.
Yeah, I'm talking Foreman.
Yeah, he got hurt this weekend though. He bumped his shoulder. I don't think it's like serious. And then Pierre Strong's in the mix. I took a ton of Foreman the first couple months. I've kind of backed off just because, but yeah, I mean he's basically free in that like 20th round. Yeah, I'll be curious. I think I think in the next couple days they have to do like final cuts. So I'll be
Mm-hmm.
curious what that running back room looks like. Obviously, the Chubb news helps clarify some things, but like Naheem Hines, Strong have injuries. So like, who is active? Do they put anyone on an IR? But yeah, Foreman, he's a guy we've seen like get it done. Like he can play. He's a physical specimen, and Stefanski's offenses are always pretty run heavy and uh, put up some stats for the running backs.
Yeah, Deshaun, I see your question here about Juju. It's actually something we covered maybe before you hopped on. So just
Yeah, I'm not really. I mean, he got cut from the Patriots, so that kind of tells you where he's at talent wise at this point in his career, in my opinion. Um,
So while you're picking here, I see your last pick off the board, Brandon Cooks. We spent a little time talking CD Lamb, but I think the biggest news out of Cowboys camp this past week is around their Pro Bowler, Deron Bland. So he's going to undergo surgery to repair a stress fracture in his foot. Likely going to miss 6 to 8 weeks, if not more. So, to me, that's a big knock to their defense. Likely just puts more pressure on their offense. Probably going to continue to see them have elevated pass rates compared to the beginning of their season last year. Kind of likes me like guys like Cooks, Tolbert. I really like Dowdle as the pass catching running back and on that squad. Jake Ferguson. To me, those guys get some bumps. Obviously, you can't bump CeeDee Lamb. The guy's going in the top 3 picks overall on basically every draft. So, with that news, it does help me, like some of those ancillary pieces on Dallas a little bit more. What do you think about that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Part of it too for me is with the change in defensive coordinator from Dan Quinn to Mike Zimmer, they're probably going to be a little more conservative defensively. So, it'll be interesting to see because a little more zone heavy looks, a little more like just try to instead of trying to create so many big plays, which they're really good at, and it's why they dominated some of the bad teams they played. Instead of doing that, it's more of like we're not going to give up big plays. Probably is better suited for actually winning the meaningful games because you saw them just get torched by the Packers in the postseason last year. But yeah, it'll be interesting because between that change on that side of the ball and then the Lamb situation, and I think with him being like the centerpiece of the offense, like if he's not full speed or if he's out or anything, like there's more volume to be had, but there's also more like they might not score as many points. I don't know. I'm very interested to see how the Cowboys' first 4 weeks plays out. I think it could go a lot of different directions. And of course, it will be on every major media outlet, like 24/7 for as Cowboys
You won't be
news
able to
always
escape
is. Yeah.
So I see you took TJ Hawkinson here. I think that he's my highest exposure tight end, and I'm not sure it's particularly close. Actually, that's not true. It is kind of close. Unfortunately, the guy who is like second or third for me right now is had some news this weekend as well on the negative side. Jelani Woods. He had surgery on his foot, turf toe, out probably 3 to 4 months. As I joked with Mike, the dream is dead. Jelani Woods, completely undraftable at this point. But yeah, Hawkinson is a guy that I love being able to get here in the 12th, 13th round, generally as your second tight end. He could be a guy that you could lead, your tight ends with. Probably need to consider 4 tight ends if he's your first guy off the board because he's likely going to miss probably 6 weeks through their week 6-5 would be my guess as of now. That didn't sound like QB quotient or silo, William. Jeez.
No, he's actually getting very nervous with how long I'm taking to take a quarterback. So he's getting a little antsy over here.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Let's see, what do I have so far? Walker, Moss, Ford. I'm going to take Bucky Irving. So he's gotten some buzz recently. I'm not very high on Rashad White, just lack of efficiency and stuff. The Bucs have a new offensive coordinator, came over from the Rams, and Irving's drawn some Kyron Williams comparisons. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be the RB2 on the season, but I do think there's a lot to it with like fit for systems, especially at the running back position. And especially, it's not like they're paying White a ton of money. So he put up, really good counting stats for us for fantasy last year. But I don't think that there's this undying loyalty to him. So that's another situation that first week I'm going to be extremely, extremely interested in. I think Bucky Irving, if you're in season long leagues, I think he's a great guy to draft at the end. and see how that first week plays out. And if he's just not playing, you can just drop him. But
we should put
I
something
think,
like that in a newsletter.
yeah. We do have a season-long fantasy newsletter called the Daily Dose. Billy will actually be contributing Mondays with a fantasy fallout column every day throughout the season, give you information to help you with your season-long fantasy football leagues, take home your prizes or your bragging rights, etc. Avoid last place punishments, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we actually just had our draft guide come out yesterday. So yeah, if you check us out at the website, you can subscribe. I'll actually go ahead and I'll add the link into the comments later once my hands aren't full with this lovely gentleman. You smiling at the people? There it
Yeah,
is.
he's a cutie, Mike.
Oh, it takes after
Hey,
his
Mike,
mom.
will you when you get a hand free, will you click on your squad and just so myself and the
Yeah,
people
yeah,
can see
yeah.
what it looks like so far? All I can see is running backs.
I gotta make a pick here. All right, I'll go ahead. I'll break the seal. Gino, QB1. Yeah. So there's the squad.
Yeah.
Gino Walker kind of unintentionally ended up with a relatively big bet on Seattle with their new coaching staff after years and years of the Pete Carroll regime. Mike McDonald comes over, former defensive coordinator from the Ravens. They brought in the University of Washington, Ryan Chubb, offensive coordinator from there. So Geno, Walker, and Lockett there. I like how Pitts and Hawkinson, like you talked about, I also have a lot of Hawkinson. I like taking him on rosters with guys like Pitts and Ingram because they have that Week 12 bye.
Late bye. Yeah.
So
I
like
don't mind
and
with
they're
Andrews either. Same deal.
yeah, and they're higher, they're higher end guys that you can feel pretty confident like week to week. With this cumulative scoring situation, it's you Hawkinson missing those first few weeks, it is relevant. Like it's harder to you've either got to fill that tight end room with quantity or quality besides him. So this one, just big bet on Pitts. Looks like we got another question. Deshaun, who do you all think could be this year's Packers or Texans? And you can't say the Titans. All right, that's fair because the Titans they got a bunch of guys going in single digit rounds. So what's that?
Billy wants you to take Sam Darnold.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You
just got a kid in your hand. You're answering questions. I just didn't want you to pass again on quarterback.
So what's your answer? Do you have an answer there?
My answer there has shifted a little bit in the last week or two. And I don't know that it's going to I don't know that it should change because I feel like the news around JJ McCarthy potentially helps Sam Darnold in that he's not looking over his shoulder of, hey, if I make a couple of really crummy throws, they're going to bring in the rookie. Like, I feel like it helps him. Like, no one's going to be clamoring to see Nick Mullins. To me, I like the Vikings as really late, and I think it's a team that no one is talking about just because of how concentrated they are on offense in general. And you've got some injury news with Hawkinson. You've got potential suspension news with Addison. And you're seeing that reflect. So outside of Jefferson, like all their pieces basically go really late. You're not taking a ton of draft capital, even with Addison generally going in like the 9th, 10th round. Pick 100 or so. They're guys that I like to take shots on their offense in general, just because of how concentrated I think they're going to be. Like I like grabbing Naylor as their wide receiver 3 on the depth chart in the 18th, 19th, 20th round. Well, Hawkinson's going to miss the first few weeks for sure. If Addison gets suspended, like Naylor's a guy who's going to see 7, 8, 9 targets every week, and for at least the first few weeks of the season. And he's a guy you're basically getting for free. And if he starts to develop rapport with Darnold, he's a guy that stays relevant all season, in my opinion. So that's an offense I don't mind kind of taking some shots on. What about you, Mike? Where do you kind of see this season's Packers or Texans? And apparently you can't say the Giants.
Yeah, and I'll kind of segue a team that I've kind of getting more interested in, mainly because I'm excited about Malik Neighbors, is the Giants.
Do it, the worst.
So I just took Tyrone Tracy. He's a guy I wasn't taking a lot earlier in the season, or in the draft season either, but he's got some burst. He's got some wiggle to his game. He had that injury scare, but so he's been out for a while. But the Giants, they are I trust Brian Dable. I guess I'll say it that way. And I think Neighbors is like a true difference maker. He's like a true alpha wide receiver. Obviously, Daniel Jones, a little concerning. But these are the question begets itself of we're going to be talking about some not great teams or offenses. The other one that kind of
go ahead.
Oh, the other one that kind of I've come around on a bit is the Broncos. Just Bo Nix has looked really good in the preseason. This guy's struggling. He's looked really good in the preseason. Audric Estime, he was also in the mix for that last pick for me. A young guy that it's kind of an ambiguous backfield. So, I think that those are probably my two kind of late. They seem like dusted teams, but I could see past to them maybe not being as good as the Texans and Packers last year, but being better than most people are expecting at this point.
Yeah, I think for me the second team, we spent a little bit of time talking Bucky Irving. I think my kind of, I don't want to call it a flag plant, but I think I'm gonna have a little piece come out on guys that I think are your potential and inflection points. And for those Best Ball Plus subscribers will know what Mike and I mean by that term. I think two of them play for the Bucks. And I'm going to be really high. I'm not talking, we always talk exposures. I don't think I'm going to have crazy exposure to guys like Bucky Irvin, but I'm going to be way over the field on Bucky Irvin and Jalen McMillan. To me, those are huge upside pieces that they generally go very close to each other, within a round of each other. A lot of times in that, 15th round, they usually go around the 170-ish range, both of them. Bucky Irving, I think, a little earlier. But those are both guys that I love getting exposure to. They've flashed in the preseason. And they're both seeing their ADP starting to rise a little bit. But one of the things that we kind of talk about behind the paywall is some of the risers not rising enough. I don't think that they're rising enough. I know they're both backups, wide receiver 3 and an RB2. I just think that they have massive upside. And so they're guys that I'm particularly targeting. So I guess for my second Packers or Texans team, and they also play in such a weak division, but it'll be Tampa Bay for me. Those are my two late bets that I think people are just kind of not paying enough attention to.
Yeah, I could see that. And the Bucks have, they have 3 guys being drafted in the first 6 rounds, but still especially if you're talking about those specific other guys. I'm going to take Tucker Kraft here. So Kraft, I live not too far from Green Bay, and he's going to be active for week 1. He obviously, Luke Musgrave missed a bunch of time with the lacerated kidney last season, and Kraft was kind of the main tight end during that time. Kraft missed a couple months this summer with a torn pectoral, but he's back, and it sounds like, he's going to play week 1. And from everything I've heard, he was very involved in their live stuff last week. Schemed looks, downfield looks, some screens. I don't know. he's a guy that, you know, that Packers offense we were just talking about how last season they surprised. This year, obviously, a lot more expensive to bet on the Packers offense than it was last year. But Kraft, I just got him in the 19th round as a third tight end. He's a guy that I'm taking a ton of the last week or so and will continue to till the season starts.
Yeah, I think kind of one more news shout I want to give you went the pick after you in the 18th round,
Mhm.
pick 211. I think the big news kind of I don't want to call it big, but the noteworthy news for this late in the draft cycle or rounds, it looks like Odell Beckham is going to start the season on the pup list. Is what's being reported this morning. Um, so to me, that makes Washington so much more viable as going to be their wide receiver 3, going to be on the field, not kind of splitting that time with Odell to start the season. And just another one of those situations where, I mean, both him and Jalen Wright have looked really good during the preseason. So just a guy that if he can get opportunities on the field and establish some rapport, maybe it's a job he doesn't seed touches too when Beckham comes back. So, those are the type of opportunities that I really like targeting in that 18th, 19th, 20th round. Guys that can be difference makers if things kind of break their way.
Mhm.
You see plenty of times people take wide receivers in the 19th, 20th round that like literally just have no upside. Like, their best game all season will be like 10 fantasy points. Like that can't help you. Like there's no point. Drafting that guy is just literally a wasted draft spot. So
Mhm.
he's a guy that I like to kind of target there. Let's see. How'd you do over there? I don't know if I have any other kind of noteworthy news for this week that we didn't
I think
cover.
the only thing would be we talked a bit about the Patriots, but Jacoby Brissett got a shoulder injury last night. So,
Yep, I saw that.
and then this morning, um, did we talk about May already? I just
We didn't talk about May.
Okay, so yeah, he Brissett had a shoulder injury. It was a total missed protection. The video of it's actually pretty funny. They tried to run like a play action with like a kind of goofy blocking scheme, and their left guard blocked their right guard, and then their running back blocked their tackle, and then Brissett, after he did the play action, just got unloaded on. So he's got a shoulder injury, and then before we went on, I actually saw that this morning. Gerard Mayo was doing uh, like a radio show for local radio, and he said that he thinks May has outplayed Brissett. So, I mean, I would think at this point he's going to be. I would think at this point, yeah, he's going to be the starter. And I have a ton of him, so I'm excited about that. Not excited about him getting blown up probably by that
That offensive
the
line.
offensive line if they're doing stuff like that. We've got like a bad news Bears situation. Yeah. So Deshaun, one final question: did you take a third QB because you feel the first two are weak? Yeah, kind of. You know, as a, I think that each draft is a little bit different. It's not necessarily weak. I like both Geno and Darnold. Um, just the way that draft fell when I was picking kind of in the middle of the round there. Um, I felt all right with my running backs. Knew I needed one more, but was okay not getting two more. And then I wasn't going to stop at two tight ends. So basically, it came down to I knew I was taking one more tight end and at least one more running back. So it was either Carr or another running back there. And honestly, at this point in the draft, there weren't other running backs that like I felt especially excited to throw on the roster. But yeah, that's
And then I
that's basically it. Yeah, obviously loaded up on the wide receivers there, and then talked through my running back situations there. I think Moss and Ford could be um, lead running backs for pretty good offenses. So we shall
sure.
see. But it's I have 129 other ones down and 20 more to go. So we'll see sooner than later.
Nice.
All right.
Well,
Anything?
you've got a little kid in your arm, so I think if you're watching us this long,
As
you
soon as I
probably
brought up the Giants and Broncos, it put him right to sleep.
like to
So
sleep. He's like, no, those
just for
offenses.
any parents out there, that's your cheat code going forward. Just go ahead and start talking about bottom 5 projected NFL offenses, and kids just go right down. So, yeah, otherwise, I think we'll get to it. Like I said, we got 10 days left. We got a lot of drafting to do. Check us out at oneweekseason.com, our Best Ball Plus product. Also, obviously, I talked about our season-long stuff that is coming out. That is all free, but we also have our DFS and Inner Circle products if you are into that sort of stuff during the NFL season. Check us out, oneweekseason.com. Check out drafters.com, best place to play best ball and the highest EV place to stick your money for the next 4 months if you're doing best ball type stuff. So I am Mike. He is Billy. Thank you as always for joining us. We will see you on Discord. We'll see you on Twitter, in the draft rooms, and at the top of the leaderboards come December. See you later.
1 week season.